Hello and welcome to Required Reading, the podcast that revisits the most impactful books from our childhood. I'm your host, Erin Bowles. I am a writer, actor, and comedian. And our guest today is an Emmy-winning writer, producer, showrunner, creator. You may know her from Sex and the City, The Big C, and Welcome to Flatch. She gave me my very first job, made me an actor, Jenny Bicks. Hello.
Oh my God, hello. Hello. I didn't make you anything. You already were that.
I just didn't know it.
You just
I
didn't
just
know
didn't know
it.
it.
And you were such a delight. And you were so talented. And that's what I have to say about that. And I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you. That's the end of the podcast. We got
That's the
it. We're
end.
good.
Oh my God, we're done. Wow.
No, our book today from I think 1961 by Roald Dahl is James and the Giant Peach.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll first say I never read this book, but I grew up on the claymation movie, watching that a lot. What is your story with the book?
Oh my gosh. First of all, that's kind of amazing that there was a clay. That's exactly, it should be done as claymation
hmm
because it's
They've
so.
got a little, like at the beginning and end when they're outside of the peach live action, but everything inside is
Oh.
all claymation.
Okay. So I think I picked up this book in the summer from our library here in Maine, where I spent my summers. And I was probably like, I want to say maybe 9. And I loved, you know what? Now I can't remember whether Phantom Tollbooth was before or after this. That's something that, Aaron, you can figure
Yeah.
out once we're done. Oh,
I
wait.
think Phantom Tollbooth, we just did a couple weeks ago. It
Okay.
was within the same handful of years. Phantom Tollbooth was 1961. It might have actually been the exact same year.
Wow, he was busy.
Yeah.
I would,
Phantom Tollbooth was an American author,
yeah.
but so similar. Yeah.
But I felt like there were these kind of absurdist books that I was starting to read, and this one piqued my interest, and I grabbed it. It had a different cover than the one
Mhm.
that I went back to that same library, which was kind of
Oh,
great, to take it out again. And the one I got was, my original didn't look like that. I felt that this one looked a little friendlier than the one
yeah.
I got. And I probably read it in like one sitting, maybe two. And I was really kind of hooked.
Yeah. What did you sort of remember? Like, did you reread it a lot as a kid? What made you say, this is the one I want to go back to?
What's funny is I don't think I reread it a lot. I think it stuck with me. And so reading it again, it was fun to try to figure out what it was that why it had stuck with me for so long. Because obviously, as a writer, we're reading, one hopes we're reading all the time. But I think it was because it was one of the first books I read that felt like kind of grown up and had like kind of these dark edges to it. And he wasn't afraid to be like surreal and absurd, which ended up being, I think, a big stepping stone for my writing. So I think it stuck with me that way. So when I picked it up again, I was like, wow, I don't remember most of like the plot is crazy. It's jam-packed with plot for a not a long book, but it stuck with me because I think it really did impact my writing.
Oh, wow. That's my favorite thing about the podcast is sort of connecting what you
Yeah.
started with and where you went. Roald Dahl has kind of an odd story. He grows up in England, born to Norwegian parents, and is a fighter pilot and intelligence officer in World War II and has a crash landing and hits his head. And he says that's where all the writing comes from.
I totally believe it. He seems like a guy who has those dark edges.
Yeah.
Like he's seen stuff.
Yeah. I mean, he also wrote at least two screenplays, James Bond, I'm not sure which one, and Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Right.
Range.
Again, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, that's a drug-fueled dream.
Yeah.
How the hell do you think this is what the story I'm going to tell? They're all going to be riding in this car and then it's going to be flying around.
Yeah.
Which when you're a kid, that's like the most amazing thing
Yeah.
to realize like, oh, your imagination can do whatever it wants. Like you
Yeah.
don't have to just tell a story about the kid who lives down the street. You can actually tell a story about a huge peach or a flying car.
Yeah. Yeah, James and the Giant Peach is a little boy with a terrible life
Oh.
who receives a bag of crocodile tongues.
1,000 long slimy crocodile tongues boiled up in the skull of a dead witch for 20 days and nights with the eyeballs of a lizard. Add the fingers of a young monkey, the gizzard of a pig, the beak of a green parrot, the juice of a porcupine, and 3 spoonfuls of sugar. Stew for another week and then let the moon do the rest. I
Let the
mean,
moon do the
let the
rest.
moon do the rest. But also, let's just talk about the fact that there's a skull of a witch
Yes.
in here. But as a kid, you read that and you're like, oh, I'm being led into something that's really dark and dirty.
Yes, there's like secret knowledge that you're not
Yeah.
supposed to have. Absolutely. And
Oh,
he accidentally spills them, and they make this peach tree in his yard, his desolate yard, grow the biggest dang peach you ever saw.
you ever saw bigger and bigger and bigger. I mean, the other thing I forgot was how quickly, like, his parents die in this
Yeah.
awful story. Like on page 2, they're like,
Hmm.
just going to visit London, and then a huge rhinoceros eats them. Like
Yes.
every kid's worst nightmare at that age, like, oh, my parents are gone. I have no
Yeah.
siblings. I am all alone in the world. And then what happens? You get sent to the worst two people you could ever get sent to live with.
Yes. And in the film, I mean, I think they stay alive longer. They die really early. They're crushed by the peach, the ants, but they're played by Miriam Margolyes and the mother from Ab Fab. Phenomenal.
Really?
Yes.
Oh,
Incredible.
this Jennifer, she's
Yeah.
amazing. And I would love to see her. I now I'm gonna have to watch that because they're so funny and so dark. What are they?
Yes.
Ant Striker and Ant Sponge? Ant Sponge
One is,
Spiker.
yes, Spiker and Sponge.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Spiker.
they're,
And they're one's tall and beady and the other's round and sweaty and they beat him. I mean, it's not
yes.
even like you get left alone a little bit. Like they're beating him, making him do chores. He has no friends. Like this is,
Yeah.
as a child, the worst thing that could happen to you.
And Roald Dahl does this incredible. I read Charlie and the Chocolate Factory for the show in like January,
Mhm.
and Roald Dahl does this amazing combination of fantastic fears and terrors, and also deeply real ones. Like Charlie is dealing with malnutrition and
Right.
starvation. And so it can be, rhinoceroses and giant peaches and also physical abuse.
Yeah. And the fact that consider how it wasn't that long before that it was World War II.
Yeah.
And he was fighting in World War II. So you're also coming back into this world with a sense of darkness that you never had before and the knowledge that things can go wrong at any minute. And in this book, they do in a heartbeat. Sometimes
Yeah.
good if you want to kill the ants, which of course we did. And that was
Yes.
also the most satisfying death scene to me. It's
Yeah.
Peach just rolls right off the tree and right over the ants. Like
Yeah.
just they're gone.
I like what you said about how it's not too far off from World War II because obviously he was a soldier and he dedicates this book to two of his daughters. And I
Mm,
think there must be that mentality of like, as a parent, what world are you bringing them into and creating?
right.
Um,
That's that's interesting because it's like, here's a sweet story for my daughters.
yeah.
Everything dies. Everything is going to die. And the fact that when the peach comes down in New York, people think it's a bomb. I mean, like you
Yeah.
would never, that was so certainly the child of a World War II story.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
that people were constantly worried that they were going to get nuked. And here's this cute story about a peach landing in New York, and then suddenly people are running for their lives. Like,
Yeah, I think they're afraid of being shot down as
mhm.
they come into New York. And am I correct in remembering you grew up in New York?
I grew up in New York. I grew up in New York City, and I wish we had had a big peach come on. But I think that's part of why I liked it
Yeah.
too. Was you grew up in New York, and it all seems kind of so big and crazy and vibrant, and yet here's this story about this one peach that takes over a city for that moment in time, right? I mean, we know New York, that'll happen, and then something else will happen two
Right.
years later, and it stops being the cover of the New York Post. But in that moment, it takes everybody. There's also this kind of communal sense of
Yeah.
wonder and confusion that I love can happen in a big city where everyone stops and looks up and sees this, which I did think at some point they yelled, "It's a bomb." Maybe,
Yeah, I no, I think so. But
um,
there's that wonderful as it comes down and they realize it's a peach, everyone, especially all the kids come running and James
yeah,
is like, "Everybody eat it. It's enough for
have a bite.
everybody."
Right. We
Yeah.
talk about child starvation and child hunger. Like that was this is a big part of the story. Like they were hungry for a lot of this, and but he offered. It's really about friendship. Like he didn't
Yeah.
have any friends, and then at the end, he gets to live in this peach or peach pit, and all these kids get to come visit him and play with him
Yeah.
anytime he wants. Which I wonder if Roald Dahl was an only child,
I think he might have been.
because that feels
Um,
like an only child need.
yes, I am an only child, and it felt there's a very unique isolation, I think, to
Mhm.
that. I'm Googling Roald Dahl. But yeah, I was wondering, were you an only child? Are you an only child?
No, no, I have siblings. I have an older brother and a little sister and a little brother. So there was probably also a part of me that loved the idea of a solo adventure
Mm,
because I really was never alone in my childhood. And that's not a bad thing. That was probably great 80% of the time. But as somebody who grew into a writer, you want those solo times to have
yeah,
your brain turn off and just be able to imagine. And here's the best thing that can happen. And also, there are no humans around. I don't love
yeah,
humans all the time, so I was like, I could do that. I could be with like a grasshopper and a ladybug and
yeah.
hang out and suddenly break into poetry,
Yes.
which they do occasionally.
Songs are that was surprising in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory too. There's poetry and song and dance that
Yeah.
I didn't realize. I think Roald Dahl was the oldest of four, and all of his little siblings were girls. So it's him and three little sisters, I think. There
Okay.
might be more.
Would not have guessed that.
No.
And
But
he's a
yeah,
chocolate historian and a medical inventor. How about
uh,
that?
yeah. I think part of the inspiration for Chocolate Factory was that when he was in school, his school was near a chocolate factory, and they would come and bring the kids samples and say like what's good, what's bad. And I think they
Wow.
were very like secretive about the recipes and the ingredients and trying to hide it from all the other chocolatiers.
And see, I feel like if he wrote the story of that truly, somebody would get poisoned. I feel like if there was a factory down the street from any school at this point and they tried to feed any candy to children, that would probably not be allowed.
No.
But it would
And
probably kill like the mean teacher that everybody wanted dead.
yeah, did you read a lot of Roald Dahl, like Matilda or Charlie or The
Yep.
Witches?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. All of them. And to me, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory was like, it was crazy. I mean, again, it's so fantastical and it takes you on such a journey. And like, he's in such dire straits. I mean,
Yeah.
couldn't be worse. You're sleeping head to foot with your grandparents who are elderly and infirm, and you're so hungry. And then you get this one chance, you know? And
Yeah.
thankfully ultimately pays off for him. But I loved anything that took me out of my world, but I didn't love growing up. And I was thinking about it. I'm not sure we had that much fantasy.
Yeah.
I mean, we had like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. You know, we had Narnia, but I didn't really get drawn into those the way I did a world where it's real, but then behind the real, there's like weird shit that can happen.
Yeah. James spends most of the novel inside a peach with big insects and bugs and worms who are, in the ground when the crocodile tongues spill out. And the something that struck me the most is when he's given the crocodile tongues, there's this mystery man who shows up and he says, "You'll never be miserable again because you are miserable, aren't you?"
Yeah.
That really startled me.
Yeah, right? It is again like both incredibly scary, but also how affirming that somebody labels,
Yes.
sees you and says you're miserable. So how bad can it get? And then it gets worse for a second because then he
Mhm.
spills them. It's literally like, oh my God, this is your big moment. You're gonna have such happiness. And then
Yeah.
he spills them on the ground, and you're like, oh shit, this is
Yeah.
not gonna go the way you think. But that some adult looks at him and knows how he feels.
Yeah.
As a kid, that's like such a big deal to have your emotions labeled.
Yeah. I definitely had the sense of like feeling sad as a child feels like you're doing something that you're not supposed to, and that
Hmm.
there's like a wrongness. So not only to be seen, but then also I have the cure.
Right.
So jaw dropping.
Right. And he just shows up out of nowhere. There's not a lot of plot
No.
device involved in like, where does this guy come from and
Yeah.
why? And where does he go? Doesn't matter. He shows up. By the way, I wish we could do this all the time in screenplays, like not have
Yeah.
to explain where like someone shows up with the answer. But it's a children's book, so you buy it. And then
Yeah.
hands him the brew that was cooked in a witch's skull. Not a witch's cauldron, a witch's skull.
No, more hardcore. Yeah.
Just in case you weren't freaked out enough. I also read a lot of Stephen King growing up. This
Mm,
was right before I moved into Stephen King, probably. I probably read Stephen King early, when I was 11, 12, 13 up in, but I think this was the beginning of my love of that slightly dark side.
yeah, because you can enter safely through the realm of fiction and the distance of it, and yet there's that realism to tie you
Yeah.
back.
Totally. And this
Yeah.
was peach. This was a nice, fuzzy, delightful fruit, not a serial killer.
Although I think I read at first the idea was it was going to be a cherry, and then he changed
Oh,
it to a
really?
peach. I think
This I
so.
didn't know. James and the Giant Cherry.
I think just the peach makes more sense. Like you said, it is softer, it's bigger. I love the pit. I love that they go into the pit.
I know they live in the pit. A lot happens in that pit. I mean, and
Yes.
James ends up living there for the rest of his life.
Mhm.
But a cherry would have been interesting. It wouldn't have been fuzzy. You wouldn't have been able to, well, you could have just made it as big as you needed to feed
Yeah.
people. But a cherry pit doesn't have that slightly open nature.
Yeah, where you can
Yeah,
wriggle through.
wiggle through.
Just one tiny detail that I loved is Charlie gets into the peach pit and there's like sofas and couches. Makes no sense, and yet it's maybe my favorite part of the book.
It's like a writer's room. I know. He just walks in and like takes a seat. Like, where did they, I mean, whatever. I mean, they're very industrious. They were
Yes.
using nylon. Like suddenly they're weaving nylon, which is a synthetic material. It's not stopping them. They can do whatever they want. So you know what? They probably had time and they made some sofas. But if you've ever moved a sofa into any kind of apartment, like you can't fit it in there, which means they probably made the sofa within the pit, as opposed to
Absolutely.
creating it and then trying to get it into the pit.
Yeah. And I love that as soon as Charlie goes in, everyone says, like, you're finally here. We've been waiting for you. We need you. Oh, that was so heartwarming and devastating.
I know. Well, it's also like, again, as a kid, you don't feel you have any agency, right?
Mhm.
And no one cares about you. I'm not saying no one cares about you, but you're not
It's
there to do anything beyond
yeah.
maybe not try to cause too much trouble as your brain is melding itself together. And here is a whole group of people, I'm saying people, but we know they're not, they're insects, who say, You're our savior.
Yeah.
And he basically is throughout the whole book. He's always
Yeah.
the one who at the last minute is like, I'm gonna save this person. We're gonna do it this way. Like that's what you dream about as a kid. Like I am that important and I can solve problems and people see me as that person. I matter.
Yeah.
I matter.
Exactly. Every time they're in peril, he has the solution and he comes up with it. In the ocean, he gets seagulls and wrangles them, and then there's cloud problems.
A lot of cloud problems. That I thought was really interesting. The cloud, were they cloud monsters? What did I
Cloud
read
people? Something
Cloudmen,
like that?
Cloudmen,
Yeah.
Cloudmen. And I was like, is this supposed to be like there was a kind of a slightly religious overtone to the whole thing of like they're living on the clouds and they look like was this heaven? Was this hell? And I'd be curious to know how much Roald Dahl dealt with religion in his life,
Yeah.
but it felt suddenly kind of tonally like you're some kind of retribution. I don't know. I don't know what was happening there with the cloud, but they were certainly scary. In claymation, were they scary?
Yeah.
Were they like big?
I don't think that is maybe in the movie. I'm not sure because that reading that was very new. Although I loved that I love any children's literature where they put like this is the story behind this. This is how this gets made and it's in this one it's rainbows and they're painting them. I loved
Right.
that.
They're
Yeah.
throwing the snow and it's like they're pelting each other. So that was kind of fun. But then they're really ominous. They're big and kind of,
Mhm.
you can't really get a sense of their figure. They're kind of this shadowy, scary archetypes almost. Yeah. Then the rainbow breaks, which is
Yeah.
also fascinating. Like whoever thinks of a rainbow as being solid.
Mhm. Although I think like as a kid you do, I
Yeah.
guess. Or it definitely there's a day where you learn what it is and there's a time before.
And it's like, oh my God,
What do
they
you
broke.
yeah, what are you gonna do?
How are you going to fix the rainbow?
What do you think really like surprised you on this rereading? Things that you didn't expect or didn't remember?
All of the adventure of it. Like I think I just identified with the log line, the beginning and the end. And I was so amazed by how much adventure is packed into this little story. And again, how mature and kind of dark everything was. I knew I had liked him because it made me feel old and in the know. This wasn't a children's book. This had like real consequences and death in it. But I think I was happily surprised again by the kind of sarcasm and the darkness. But yeah, there's a lot of action you can do. I mean, it makes you realize like, wow, you just take one little thing like a peach and look at it long enough and you come up with this much story that can happen. You're
Yeah.
in the air, you're rolling down the hills, the kind of inner dynamics between all of the insects. There's a lot going on.
Yeah. There's some beautiful line with the ladybug, and she has, like 1,000 kids or something. And I think the line is something like, and they're each loved wonderfully and completely.
Yeah.
Oh,
Come
for,
on.
yeah.
Come on. Again, you want that as a kid. You want to hear that as a kid. And that they all take care of each other. It is a dysfunctional family of insects, but they all take care of each other, which I think, again,
Yeah.
is a good moral to understand that you can be totally different from each other and annoy each other. But when the chips are down, you're going to jump off the peach, rappel down the peach, and try to save your friend, even if he's different or she's different from you.
Yeah. At one point, they're sharks, and they're trying to get
There's
around the
sharks and they're
shark.
trying to take a bite. It all became very technical then because he's describing how, in fact, they weren't able to bite the peach because the way their teeth are built inside their jaws, which is also cool because I'm sure there's some kid who's like, obsessed with sharks and it's like, oh my God, that's right. They can't actually bite the peach. It just felt like they could bite the peach.
Yeah, there's some line about the glowworm is like just a female version of this, or like just doesn't have the wings, and I was like, oh, roll,
Oh,
I'm
who knew?
learning.
Who
Yeah,
knew? And then she gets to be the light on the Empire State Building, which is like, through the whole thing. The glowworm, I felt for it because I felt like the glowworm was just kind of lying there, not really involved in the action, maybe almost losing her glow. And then, she ends up in the greatest city in the world and the greatest building in the world as a beacon of light. Like,
yeah,
what a great message for anyone who's a glowworm or a young person.
yeah. They all, I think, all the bugs like get jobs and have very important positions in the community.
Yep. The cricket plays and the Philharmonic. I mean, it's just like, yes, you can be whatever you want to be. Even
Yeah.
if you're a huge insect that's really scary to people. And the centipede with all of his boots, definitely like a slight OCD nature to that, which I really felt for him. Like he would be so upset if his boots weren't on. And you'd have all this action and you have to stop everything and be like, I cannot go anywhere until someone helps me with all my boots. And you were like, yes, help him with those boots. They're the thing that makes him feel safe.
He can't do it by himself. There's so
But
many.
there's so many boots and so little time. So little time.
Yeah. Is there anything that you think you saw like really distinctly through a different lens that maybe adulthood has given you a new, fresh perspective on?
That's a really good question. I'm going to answer it not as an adult, but as an
Yeah.
adult writer,
Yeah.
which is I think I often, as a writer, and you would know this as well, you read things and you read them through the lens of being a writer. And so you can kind of sometimes see the sewing marks. You can see where things are attached for good or bad. And I think what I appreciated was, and it reminded me that you don't always have to attach things so fully, meaning
Mm.
things jump all over the place in this. That guy shows up with the crocodile tears that were baked in the witch's head and then just disappears. And maybe, just maybe, you don't need as much explanation to explain imagination. And so I
Yeah.
think that for me was surprising that I needed to be reminded of that, but I liked being reminded of that. And I liked how, from a writing perspective, like to jump into verse, and it was very natural. Like they're just talking, and then each of these insects, and I think James does too. They get to, and it's a song, but we're reading it as a poem. Get to just sing and in verse. And that,
Yeah.
as a writer, I think we often isolate ourselves in terms of what the rules are. And in this case, I liked that the rules seem to be broken.
Yeah.
Important to be reminded of that.
Yeah, and then I think there's always a cool moment as a kid, whether or not you become a writer, to be like, "Oh, I don't have to follow those rules and stories can be shaped this
Yeah.
way and things can be different and fun and playful."
Yeah, yeah, and it scares me. I mean, this is a different podcast, but it very much scares me that when they do studies of kids with like Chat GPT, their brains aren't firing the same way. And I
Yeah.
think we have to remember that we are imaginative beings and let your imagination be as broad and crazy as it can be, especially when you're a kid, when there are no ramifications. Like
Yeah.
no one's going to divorce you. No one's going to fire you because and if they do, then fuck them, you're in the wrong job.
Yeah.
But, it reminds you that as a kid, the best thing you can do is let your imagination be as big as it can be. And then if
Yeah.
as an adult, do that too.
Yeah, there's I think a lot of in your teen years and your 20 years sort of shaping yourself to the world. And it's so great every encouragement you get before that to be as big and
Yeah.
as giant of a peach as you can.
Be your own peach. That's true. It's interesting. I wonder, were there seven people? Like, how things are always in seven,
Hmm.
sevens being kind of that, the seven dwarfs, everything else. But I wonder if there were seven characters in this.
Yeah, there's the ladybug, grasshopper, spider,
Glowworm,
glowworm, worm, centipede.
Pete, and James.
Jam, that's
Are we
seven.
missing anyone? I think that's right.
I think that's it.
I think that's really cool because that is also very much a literary choice,
Hmm.
magic number. Oh, and the other thing I was going to say is I think there's something really cool to be reminded that things can turn out okay.
Yeah.
And that in the worst moments, I mean, may no one have as bad a life as he had at the beginning, but that at the end, like it's actually kind of moralistic in the best way. Like
Yeah.
you help out other people, you go on this adventure, you're scared, you're not sure you can do it, and then you do it, and at the end, you end up in the best city in the world with all the friends you could want, which is all he wanted was to be able to be in a
Yeah.
place where there were people and he could go down the street and play with people. So it's interesting how optimistic it is for a story that has a lot of darkness.
Yeah, and that it can be both. That I think is so huge. It can be both.
Maybe that's it. Maybe that's what attracted me too, is that it's true. I mean, it's so untrue.
Yes,
It's
that
very
it circles
true.
back. Yeah.
Yeah, like that there's absolute misery in the world and then there's absolute happiness. And the key is to figure out how to navigate both, whether you're in a giant peach or just in your apartment.
Yeah. Oh, I'm very
Ah,
glad I like finally read it because the movie had been the entity and all my knowledge to it.
yeah, I'm so glad this gave me an opportunity to read it again and to talk about it again. And I have kind of been mentioning it to people and they're like, "Oh yeah, oh my God, I remember that." And I think it was the time again, like Phantom Tollbooth and the elevator. What was the elevator book?
Was that Charlie at the end?
No,
Charlie and the
isn't
Chocolate Factory?
there a book called the we'll come back. We'll
Okay.
come back to this. But this absurdity and this idea that objects and places can be not what they are was people are just starting to write that kind of stuff. And not surprisingly, some of the authors were authors of adult fiction as well
Yeah.
because they infused it with a lot of real life.
Yeah. And I mean, compared to a chocolate factory, a peach is so typical, so normal, and
Right.
that it can be.
You'd never imagine. The magic elevator? What the hell?
I know at the end Charlie shoots out of an elevator, but there may be something completely
I
different.
think the listeners right now are yelling, I know
Yes.
the name of the book. Why are you messing around? Or they're yelling, they don't know what they're talking about. Um, but
It'll
we'll,
come to you in like an hour.
yeah, totally. I did love the divine retribution of the peach killing those ants. Like that's the other thing is like when you're a kid, you have this fantasy of being able to right the wrongs, and
Mm,
it's so satisfying when that happens. And it's so you don't have that kind of power when you're a kid. And then to read a book where like, oh my God, the awful villains get killed. I mean, it's like, the Wild Witch of the West gets the house on her.
Yeah.
But I think that was the first time when I watched the movie of Wizard of Oz that I was like, oh, you can kill the things that are bad. There is that,
Yeah.
of course, that was a house. This is a peach. It's not you doing it, but that you can
Hmm.
enjoy a world where retribution in the best way can happen is
Yeah.
incredibly satisfying.
Yeah, and it's also kind of validating of like
Yeah,
that thing did suck and it deserves to not be here anymore.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There's nothing positive about those ants. Like he made very clear there was not one moment where you're like, oh, I wish those ants had stuck around. No, you want those ants to be gone. And the peach, if we all had a peach that could take care of everything bad, wouldn't that be great?
Oh, I would love an apartment inside a peach pit in Central Park. Oh my goodness.
God. I didn't know. What would you have in your peach pit?
Oh, so many books. So many books. And I like, yeah, I have a very clear image from the movie of like a big carpet and big cushy sofas, sort of like a old gentleman's study.
Oh, yeah, like a den. I
Hmm.
see mine as being kind of a more of a pink kind of dreamland.
Ooh.
I mean, I think it would smell really good. That's also the beauty of it. The peach never rots. It just
Yeah.
it gets juicier, but
Yeah.
it never, given everything that peach has gone through, it shouldn't taste good by the end. But it's magical and it still tastes good. But yeah, I think it would have like stalagmites and stalactites a little bit.
Mm,
It would be
yeah.
fun.
Yes. And he always has visitors. So nice.
Always. And I love also he's always welcoming to them. Like if I was living in Central Park, now by the way, that's a choice you make. You're living
Yeah.
in Central Park. You're going to have a lot of visitors. Okay. But anytime a kid knocks on his door, he goes and plays with them, which is also sweet for those kids. Like
Yeah.
if one of those kids is him from when he had no friends, he's like, I'm never going to turn them away. Like,
Yeah.
again, what a great moral. Like he knows that they could be sad and he's going to play with them, even if he's tired and hungover.
Yeah.
She isn't because he's a child, and there's no drinking in this book that we know of.
Yeah. There's a lot of kindness and generosity.
Mhm.
And what a good thing to give as an author. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's a good book. Read the
Yeah.
book, everybody. If you haven't read it, pick it up. It's a super fast read and it's really fun.
Would you consider it required reading?
Well, I don't know if anything should be required.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna say that. But I would say one book of Roald Dahl's should be required reading, like whether it's this
Hmm.
or any of his other books, because he had such a distinctive tone
Yeah.
and way with words and absurdist view of the world. But
Yeah.
I mean, so I don't want to say required, but I would say think hard about not reading it.
I
Because a
agree.
giant peach might roll over you if you make the wrong choice.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for doing this. This was such a delight.
Oh
I
my
miss
God,
you so
it's so
much.
fun. I love rereading books. I love having a chance to revisit something from your childhood and see why it made you pick it.
Yeah. I love seeing how it shapes each one of us as artists and as thinkers.
Yeah. I'm gonna go back and read more of his stuff. And I'm also gonna figure out where the magic elevator is.
Yes.
Get
What
back
is
to you
that?
on that.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to turn off the recording then. Sounds
Turn
good?
it off.
We have gossip.